Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be recommending a bunch of romance books that all have little to no spice. I have accumulated a list that is both adult romance and also YA romance, so whichever genre you want. There are a few that are like romantic-y, but mostly it's just normal romance. So let's just get started and talk about the first book. To start out with, I have The 7-Year Slip, which is a normal romance, but it does have some like magical realism to it. In the book, we follow Clementine, and her aunt passes away, and after that she inherits the aunt's apartment. The apartment is magical, or at least so her aunt says, and she has told Clementine that in the apartment you can sometimes either go 7 years into the past or 7 years into the future. You can't decide when or where or how or anything like that. You just one day will walk in and that will happen. And that happens to Clementine. She walks into the apartment one day and she's 7 years in the past. There's a strange man in her kitchen and she has no idea why he's here or who he even is. But slowly over time, when she goes back those 7 years, she starts to fall in love with this guy, but it's hard because they can't leave the apartment together. And for him, that was 7 years ago. So will she even be able to find him in like her present tense, like where he is when he's 7 years older than when he was in that apartment that one summer? Such a cute book, and just it was so good. I annotated it for one of my friends and she also rated 5 stars. And my other friend actually just told me she read it recently. She told me yesterday, I think, and she also gave it 5 stars and really loved it. So really good book. Has beautiful quotes and writing and just perfect romance that also have like other things to deal with, like the grief and stuff like that. So there are more deeper meanings in the book as well, and she's struggling with her future and like what she wants to do with her career and stuff. Very interesting read, and I definitely recommend it. Then I have kind of 2 books in one, which is When in Rome and Practice Makes Perfect, because they're interconnected standalones. And the first one is When in Rome, where we follow our main character, who is Amelia, and she is a famous singer. She decides she needs a break, so she wants to go to Rome, but she ends up in Rome, Kentucky, where her car breaks down on Noah's front lawn. He decides to take pity on her and invites her to stay at his house while she's waiting for her car to get picked up. And obviously romance starts up and she falls in love with the small town of Rome, and it's so cute. There's actually I think 4 books in the series. I've read the first 3 so far, but I'm just gonna recommend the first 2 because I didn't really like the 3rd one. So in the second one, we follow Noah's sister, who is a florist, and her romance with Amelia's bodyguard. So also very interesting. Like she's kind of trying to teach her how to like flirt and like do romance and stuff, but instead obviously they're the ones who fall in love. Next up I have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and I love Abby Jimenez in general. This book might have like a few scenes, but it's nothing like explicit or crazy. And in this book we have Justin, who believes that he's cursed because every woman he dates, after they date him, they find the love of their life, like the one they marry. And he writes about this on Reddit, about his curse, and then our other main character, Emma, sees this Reddit post and she's like, the same thing is happening to me, I have that curse. So they decide if they date each other, maybe they can like break the curse, and then both of them will find the love of their life. But obviously they are the ones who are meant to be together, obviously. I love Just for the Summer, and again it has like more, it has deeper themes as well. It's not like a fluffy romance. There's also harder parts about it, and for Emma's sake and stuff, like she always leaves and travels around. She can never stay put because she has like commitment issues because of her mom and stuff. So again, there are like deeper themes in the book than just the romance, and I really loved it, and I loved the relationship they end up having. Next up I have Happy Place by Emily Henry, and this book might also have like maybe 1 or 2 scenes, but again nothing explicit. In this book we follow Harriet and Wynne, who broke up 6 months ago, but they haven't told any of their friends that they broke up. They're all going to this cabin in Maine that they usually do every year, and Wynne wasn't supposed to come, but he shows up anyways because the rest of the friend group made him come, because 2 of their friends are getting married, so they want them all to be there, obviously. So while they're at this cabin, Harriet and Wynne kind of have to pretend that they're still together, which is kind of hard because there's some miscommunication, because Wynne broke up with Harriet over the phone and she doesn't really even understand why or what happened, but she's too scared to ask, and he's not really just giving out the information. So this book will frustrate you maybe a little bit because you're thinking, why not just talk together? But I still really love this book, and I've even read it twice. So next up we have Summer Romance, which is about Allie, who is a single mother. She's going through grief after losing her mother, and now her husband husband is leaving her as well, and she's going through a divorce. She goes to the park with her dog, and her dog ends up peeing on the pants of this guy who ends up being her love interest, and she thinks nothing can go wrong, we'll have a summer romance. But obviously it's much more than just a summer romance. A book that again has more like real issues, and I thought it was like so realistically written. You could just tell like these were real people, even though obviously they're fictional characters, but they felt like real people because they were going through real people stuff, and I had a great time reading it. This next book is not like fully a romance, but it is no spice, which is Magnolia Park, and I know it does get marketed as a romance, and there is definitely romance in it, but it's not just like a cute fluffy romance at all. It gets marketed a lot as Gossip Girl, but in London, and I've only watched one season of Gossip Girl, so I don't know how true that is. Obviously there's no aspect of the actual like Gossip Girl, but it is really rich people in London who are also kind of famous. Like their names will be in the papers and stuff if they've done something, if they go out. And our main character is Magnolia and her ex-boyfriend BJ, and that's where like the romance comes in, because Magnolia and BJ are still very in love, but because of some issues and problems that has happened, they just keep blowing it up in each other's faces, like keep hurting each other over and over again. So it's a very toxic relationship. But this series they have 3 books, this couple, and it does get better. Trust. But I love it. I think Jessa Hastings' writing in this series is literally phenomenal, and the last book so far at least I gave 6 out of 5 stars. I loved it. It was one of my favorite books of 2024. Phenomenal. The next book I want to talk about is The Cheat Sheet, which is another Sarah Adams book. Just like When Rome and Practice Makes Perfect, she makes a lot of like adult romances that have no spice, which is awesome. In this book we follow Brie, who is in love with her best friend, who is a professional NFL player, football player. One night when she's really drunk, she ends up spilling her guts to a reporter about her feelings. So now, but as far as I remember, the reporter doesn't know that the feelings aren't like reciprocated. So Brie ends up having to fake date her best friend Nathan. Oh no, what can go wrong in a fake dating situation with best friends? You already know. Another no spice adult book is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. I loved this book. I read it years ago and I still think about it. I think it's amazing, and it's going to come out as a movie. I think they've made it into a Christmas movie, I believe, that's coming out this year. It's not like the book isn't Christmas related at all. In the book we follow Jack, who is a famous actor, and he has a stalker, so his like management decides to hire a bodyguard, and this is a female bodyguard, which is Hannah. But Jack doesn't want his family to worry or know about the stalker or that he has a bodyguard, so he makes Hannah pretend to be his girlfriend. She has to like move into his family's house or farm or whatever they were living at to act like his girlfriend. Again, another fake dating. Love it. And I just loved the writing, and I thought it was so funny, and I gave it 5 stars at the time. I don't know if I would rate it 5 stars now, but I loved it in 2023. Amazing book. The last book I have to talk about in the adult section is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. It does have maybe one scene throughout the end, but this is a slow burn romance that is like 400 to 500 pages long, and there's like one scene towards the end, and that's it. But in this book we follow Vanessa, who is an assistant to Aiden, who is a professional football player, and he is called the Wall of Winnipeg. And Vanessa has gotten enough of working for him, so she decides to quit her job after working there for 2 years. And what she doesn't expect is Aiden to show up at her door begging her to come back, because she thought he was kind of ignoring her for the past 2 years, so why does he care? But obviously he's kind of had feelings for her. He's just very shy. I love this book. I know I rated it 5 stars. I think I read it in 2022. Amazing. Mariana Zapata is the queen of slow burn books. Now we have made it to the YA section of this video. First book I have on here is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. Very popular book. It got a sequel, I think maybe last year. I haven't read that one, but Better Than the Movies is a very popular YA book. It has no spice. And in the book we follow Liz, and her old crush moves back into town, so now she kind of wants to win him over, but her rival kind of, and also neighbor Wes, befriends her crush, so now she has to befriend Wes to like get help to get her crush. But as she hangs out more with Wes, she realizes that he's actually kind of cute and kind of sweet. But she never knows that because they used to prank each other all the time. Like throughout their whole childhood, they've been pranking each other in different ways because they live so close to each other. And they're just so cute. And there is a very popular quote from that book as well that's just on Pinterest, on TikTok, it's everywhere. So if you've seen that quote, I think it's something like, she's not you, and then she says what, and he says she isn't you. I believe that that's the quote. I don't know if it's verbatim the quote, but a very cute YA book nonetheless. Next up, we have The Summer of Broken Rules, where we follow Meredith, who goes to Martha's Vineyard, which she's been doing every year, but this is her first time going back after her sister passed away, unfortunately. And she's going back to the vineyard because her cousin is getting married. So her whole extended family is at this vineyard right now because of this wedding. And a family tradition they have is to do the ultimate assassins game. And the person she has to assassin is one of the groomsmen, who she finds quite cute. They end up making like an alliance. So she might lose the game and she might lose her heart. That was on the back of the book, it wasn't my words, but very cute and very perfect for spring and summer because a huge game of assassin in Martha's Vineyard, sign me up. Another book on my YA list is Love and Gelato. This book also is a romance, but it definitely also has more themes to it than that. We follow Lena, who goes to live with her dad in Italy because it was her mom's dying wish for her to get to know her father. She hasn't really known him for the 16 years that she's been alive. And when she's there, she gets handed a journal which belonged to her mother. So now she sees all these things that her mother experienced while living in Italy, and she wants to kind of like get closer to her mother in that way by experiencing and going these places that her mom are describing. She ends up befriending Ren. I don't remember if it's her neighbor, but he lives close by to her dad in Italy and he's Italian. And they go on these adventures together and she explores more secrets and stuff about her mom. Very cute book and also sentimental and like a little bit sad in some ways, but really good as well. The next book is Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, which is a rivals to lovers book. And in the book actually takes place over like only the span of like 24 hours. It's the last day of senior year and Rowan and Neil have been rivals their whole high school career. Neil ends up being valedictorian, so Rowan decides to beat him in one last time that he can, which is in their school's like game called Howl. I think it's kind of like Assassins in a way, but nonetheless, Rowan and Neil ends up having to work together to win this game, and they slowly realize they are not as annoying as each other thought, and maybe they're actually really cool. The next three books I have are fantasies, and they're also series, just warning you. The first one is Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which you might have heard about. It's very popular, where we follow Peyton, who is an ordinary in a land filled with elites because some years back or decades back, I don't really remember, there was a plague that gave some people powers but not everyone, and now there's so many elites and the elites are scared that the ordinaries are going to like somehow contaminate them and make them lose their powers. So the king decides that every ordinary needs to be killed or exiled from the land, but Peyton is hiding that she's an ordinary by pretending to be psychic. And in the beginning of the book, she ends up accidentally kind of saving the prince, Kai, which makes her kind of known, and she gets forced to participate in the purging trials, which is kind of like the Hunger Games in a way, because it's these trials that are brutal and can be deadly, where you have to fight against other elites, and she's obviously not an elite. She doesn't have any powers, but she has to pretend, and she strikes up a friendship with her prince, Kai, who I love. Love. Next up is This Woven Kingdom by Tara Mafi, same author as Shatter Me, and Shatter Me is another series that I could also recommend that doesn't really have spice as far as I remember. But in This Woven Kingdom, we follow Elise, who is the long lost heir to her kingdom, but she can't tell anyone that, so she's been in hiding since her parents got murdered years ago. She ends up meeting the current crown prince, and he realizes her actual identity, but he very quickly develops some feelings and crush on her, so he doesn't actually want her to get killed, which the king, his grandfather, thinks that she should because she is a threat to their kingdom if she's an heir. The last fantasy I have, which is also a trilogy, is The Cruel Prince. In this series, Jude and her twin sister were kidnapped when they were 7 years old and their parents were murdered, and they were kidnapped into the Feylands, and the book takes place 10 years later when they're in school and whatnot, and Jude just really wants to fit in, but it's very hard because most Fey despise humans, especially Carden, who is the prince, and you can guess who the love interest is. Obviously it's Kai. He's the cruel prince. I love this. This fantasy is more fantasy than romance and very slow burn, definitely, but I still loved it so much. Big fan, even though I wasn't even a fantasy reader when I read it, because I think I read it in 2022 maybe, but I still loved it. The second to last book is The Summer I Turned Pretty, which you have potentially heard about. It's very, very popular, especially the TV show on Amazon Prime. The TV show is a little bit different than the books though, but still the overall premise is the same, where we follow Belly, who I think it's the summer when she's 15 or 16 years old. She turned pretty. She's always had a crush on Connor, who is her mom's best friend's oldest son, and they go to their summer house every summer together. Her brother, her mom, and then her mom's best friend, and the two sons that she has, Connor and Jeremiah. You might have heard Team Conrad and Team Jeremiah. I'm Team Conrad, if you're curious. The only right choice there is. You should definitely read it. Very fun, very cute. You could definitely read this even if you're like 14, 15, 16 years old. Might be perfect for you, especially during the summer obviously, but also the spring, just like now that the weather is warmer. And the last book I have on this list is Alex Approximately, which is a book that I don't really feel like I ever hear about anymore. I don't even remember if it was that popular back in like 2021. I loved it and I rated it 5 stars when I read it. And in the book we follow Bailey, who is a movie enthusiast. She really loves classic movies, and she's been texting with this guy online who she knows is Alex, but they don't actually know each other's real names. So, and Bailey ends up moving actually to Alex's hometown in California because she's going to live with her dad, but she doesn't tell Alex that she's there because I think she's like afraid to meet him. She ends up getting a job at a museum in town where she meets Porter, who's her annoying colleague, kind of a little bit of a rival to her, but she also starts to develop a crush on him when she gets to know him better. She still hasn't told Alex that she's there, and now she's kind of struggling because she likes both of these boys and she doesn't know what to do. And the next part here is not a spoiler because it's on the back of the book, but she realizes throughout the end she doesn't have to pick because Porter is Alex. It's the same guy. And it said on Goodreads as well that this is like a teen version of You Got Mail. If you like that movie, you might like this book. I thought it was really, really cute. And I don't think I had read the back of the book, so actually I had no idea. I had a guess, it was my like theory, but I didn't know because I hadn't read the back of the book. So after I finished it and I read it, I was like, oh, I've just been sitting here guessing the whole time when it was actually plainly told to me that that is what is happening here. But like I said, that was the last book. I have no more recommendations for you with books that have little to no spice, and I hope you found some new books that you want to read if you don't like spice like myself. I do read books that have spice. I normally just skim it for the most part, depending on how explicitly it's written. I think spice makes me uncomfortable. I don't enjoy reading it. I think it's just, yeah, I just think it's uncomfortable, so I don't enjoy it. But so here are some book recommendations that you can read if you're like me and you want to read books that don't really have spice. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.